Uh, my topic today is what is language? And I can see the question mark on the faces. People will say, what is it? We know perfectly well what is language. We are using it. We have been using language all our lives. We communicate it in Delhi. It's a means of communication. Now, is that it? Is that it? Can your dog talk to you? Yeah? In which language? In sign language, okay. But can it say, Mama, I am hungry, please feed me? Can it sing a song to you? I'm not disrespecting any animal lovers here, nor am I casting any aspersions on the ability or the intelligence of the animals. The point that I'm trying to make here is language is unique to human beings. It has got a very, very biological basis. And why is that? Because we evolved that way. You see, sometime as we were evolving from the apes, we came to the ground, we became human beings, and then we started living in groups, and then we started communicating. We started telling people, hey guys, the deer are running this way. I will drive them. You please hide here. And when they pass this place, you can kill them. And we can have a big shikar. Okay? So, this kind of communication system evolved because there was some social aspect to it. First, there was biological or physiological aspect, and the second aspect was social aspect. It had to develop, it had to evolve in a society. No language can exist without a society. There are no such extreme cases, but we can always go back to fiction. You know something? You must have read the stories of Tarzan or Mowgli by Rudyard Kipling. Now these are the children, human children, who are raised by animals, and when they are living with the animals, they cannot communicate. They cannot speak. But once they join their respective societies, language-speaking societies, they can communicate very easily. This is where the difference between human beings and animals lie, because animal living in a society will not be able to speak. A human being, since that person is biologically equipped, and this is all ingrained into our genes. Children as young as 4 months, they start responding to human speech. Not just that, they prefer human speech. So this is the second aspect, that is of communication. The social aspect of language, and for that, which we use for communication. Now I am coming to the third. Actually, in the order it has come second, but I'm mentioning it third, and that is the psychological aspect. Now, language and development of brain, language and cognition, they go hand in hand. Basically, what happens is, what does language do? Language names things. It names events, it names persons, it names objects, it names natural phenomena. And once that thing is named, it comes to our mind. It starts existing in our mind. As long as it doesn't have a name, it doesn't have an existence here. You might have read Harry Potter. Some of you must be the fans of Harry Potter. There is something called as a taboo. What is a taboo? You pronounce a name and that thing appears. Okay? When there is no name, that thing cannot appear in our minds. It doesn't have an existence in our minds. What does language do? Language gives you a proper classification slot where you can put things. And this perspective of classification, or this classification aspect of any language, is absolutely unique. So this view of language is reflected in the classification system. You classify things in various ways and you slot them accordingly. This, in my opinion, is one of the most important functions of language, and that is the cognitive function. Also, the last function, but not the least, is the aesthetic function. Some of you might be loving poetry. So what is poetry, basically? Poetry will talk about weird things. Poetry will talk about things that don't exist. But then there is that rhyme, there is that some kind of musicality, there are some kind of excesses, and there is tremendous scope for individual exploration. Now, why this possibility of individual exploration is there? Because the classification that language provides, it doesn't have any kind of fixed or objective criteria. Language creates classification slots, the names, and there is no direct link, no link in between the actual object and the name. That link between the two is entirely arbitrary. Okay? It is entirely arbitrary, and it works with, I think I'll go back a bit. Yeah. It is the arbitrary sign. This is the arbitrariness which is extremely important. And that arbitrariness is reflected in the languages. It helps us use the same sign in multiple ways. For example, all of you know what does a tree mean. Okay? Now, is the tree, this sound or this name, is attached to any one particular object? Not at all. If this tree was attached to just one particular tree, any kind of communication would have been impossible, because then if this is tree, then what would that mean? Or what would that mean? Or any other similar object which exists on the back of the earth at the given moment, which was existing till now and which will exist in future, what they would be called? First and foremost, there is no actual link between the sound tree and that object. And that object tree, which is represented by this sound tree, is here. It is in our minds. So what we do is, we just wrap it up. We just wrap it up as a bundle under a prototype. Now, prototype is very important concept in all our language classification and arrangements. Okay, what is a prototype? Prototype is something which is very, very typical of that case. Yeah, so this sign which I keep referring to, that tree or bird, it consists of two sides, or it has got two sides. One is the material side. Now, what is a material side? Material side is the sound, which you can record, which you can measure. And then there is the ideational side. Now, what is the ideational side? Ideational side is this bundle of characteristics. And together, that link together between the material and the ideational side, that together forms a sign, or in a layman's language, a word. What is a word? Word has got a form, it has got a material which can be recorded or which can be written down, and it has got the side of an idea. Okay? This was something which was first propounded by a Swiss linguist called Ferdinand de Saussure. Now, Ferdinand de Saussure put the objective side of the language as langue, language, and parole, that is the subjective type. So what exactly is langue? Langue is the finite number of resources, the words and a handful of rules to join the words so that you create some kind of meaning. Okay? And they are always limited, and they can be put into dictionaries or put into grammar books. But then another interesting thing is parole. Parole is subjective. Totally, completely, 100% subjective. With the given set of rules and words, I can create infinite variety of expression, and you would be creating infinite variety of expression with the same number of rules and with the same words. Our expressions would never be identical. They would never be the same. You're getting it? You're there, I hope. Yeah? So that is the beauty of language. The resources are limited, and using these very limited resources, what you are creating by way of subjective thing is absolutely infinite. It has got, you can imagine, even you can imagine things that are not there, and you can express them. All of us read fiction, and we just love to read fiction. And fiction is what? It's totally imagined, something which doesn't exist, but still we believe it. That is the power of language. Once it comes into existence, it is there. People believe that Sherlock Holmes was actually there and he lived on 221 Baker Street and all that stuff. Okay? So, this is the subjective and objective interexchange. So, langue is the norm, parole is subjective. Now, please don't think that, they are very fixed. They are not. Langue will affect the parole and parole will affect the langue. In what way? Just imagine a situation. I said that there is a consensus. Language is at the same time extremely subjective and extremely objective. Language is subjective because we use it for expressing ourselves, our inner selves. Okay, we use it as our own tool. Okay, in that sense it is subjective, but the tool, we are not allowed to make any changes in that tool. Okay, we cannot have it the way we want. Suppose tomorrow I decide that I am going to use the word tree for a vehicle. It will not make any sense. I don't have the power to do that. Okay, but everybody is using it and everybody's usage is being reflected into the langue or the objective aspect of it. I'll give you 2 examples. One example is that the sound p, okay? The labial sound p, which was very much there, a part of Marathi, what should I say, the Marathi phonology. Today, it has been totally and completely substituted by the labiodental f, like that of English. Very rarely, we had in college a professor who would say fish famine. Okay, and the students would, especially those who had the privilege of being taught in convents, they would laugh at him because he would say it in Marathi way. But today, even Marathi words like phanas and phatak are being said like phanas and phatak. This change has already occurred because any number of Marathi speakers have substituted ph with f. All right. Now, the most interesting part. Artificial intelligence and language. Where did it all start? You know, for a very long time, today, you know, we are talking to Siri, we are talking to Alexa, and I mean, we are almost on the threshold of a very big artificial intelligence revolution. Where did it all start? It all started with translations. For translations, especially during the Cold War regime, if some of you have watched James Bond movies in that From Russia with Love, there is something called as a lector, and Bond is running after that thing, and the movie never explains why is it, what for it is, but apparently it is a lector to decode. Okay, as you know, language is a system of signs, so that decoding of that language, and if it is done automatically, well, fantastic. So people started working during the height of Cold War, people started working on this kind of translation projects. So what they first thought that, okay, the resources of language are limited, you just feed the machine with the words and the rules, and then voila, you have a translation ready. But it didn't work that way. People were literally breaking their heads for a very long time. And then what happened? Then Google happened. Google was storing everything, every possible scrap, you know, into its system, and it started throwing up parallel constructions. It started giving equivalence. You see, most of the texts, the newspaper texts, the English edition, the Marathi edition, the Gujarati edition, it is carrying a lot of overlap text-wise, news-wise. It is there in Google's archive, and it can come up very easily. But then, people by then realized this power of language learning which the human beings have. And they also understood the difference between langue and parole. By feeding langue, you are not able to create parole. For that, you have to teach the machine. You have to teach the machine as to how to acquire it, how to make use of it. And there, as probably you are all from engineering side, you are already doing NLP, natural language processing, deep learning, machine learning. So they are already teaching the machines and the machines are responding. If I have to give you a very simple example, a few years back, it was not possible to have a predictive in Marathi. Today, the situation is such that you are getting almost 100% correct predictive in Marathi when you are writing anything on, be it your WhatsApp message, be it your blog, vlog, whatever. Okay, why this could happen? Because now the machine has sufficient data in Marathi and Marathi construction patterns. Okay, so the machines are there, they are also evolving with you and they are also kind of learning with you. Now the area where, and I don't think I need to tell you that there are ways in which language is studied, the phonetic side, the syntactic side. Syntactic side is what you do for when you prepare a program for the computer. Okay, writing in a Python or any other thing is like what? It is creating a syntax. Syntax is like bringing things together to make a meaning. That is exactly what you're doing. But where the machines are lagging today is there are many other situations, because language, again, essentially it's a social phenomena and it picks up undercurrents of social relations. There are things like intents, there are things like veracity. The politicians will always speak from the podium and then they'll give you 1001 promises. And everybody in the audience knows not to believe in those promises. Everybody knows what exactly it means because there are several other cues and human beings are doing it at an amazing speed. Now, all this kind of thing, you need to teach the machines. Why? Because, all of you use social media, and then there is a lot of undesirable material, there is a lot of trolling happening on social media, and then there you have to put the filters. So now we are almost on the verge of teaching machines to do that. So there is a lot of data. I mean, how to analyze the visual cues, the auditory cues, the social setting cues, and the machines have data, tremendous, humongous amount of data. So it is always possible for the machines now to analyze it, fix the patterns and come up. But it is still taking some time. So I just don't know. I don't know how far artificial intelligence will really take over. Yes, writing a Hindi film song is very easily, it now can be handled by artificial intelligence. Because anyway, it is the repetition. Yaar mila, dildar mila, mujhe ek naya sansar mila. These rows come nearly in all the movies. So, but it is the field of human creativity, which is, I think, still beyond artificial intelligence, which is based on language. And I would like to believe and I would like to hope that it remains that way. Thank you.